Hi, I'm Paul Forbes, Director of the Expanded Success Initiative.
And I'm Brittany Dragus, the Project Coordinator.
And we're here to discuss the Leadership Development and Mentoring mini grant that we'll be releasing for the 2015-2016 school year. You have been selected to be one of the schools to participate in this grant because of the work that you have done, because of the passion you've shown, because of the work you've done with our young men. As you know, ESI is focused on increasing the number of Black and Latino young men who graduate from high school prepared to enter, succeed, and persist in college and career pathways. Over the last 3 years, we've looked at the structures, we've looked at programs that's been implemented at ESI schools, at your school. And one of the strategies that's been used that we've heard a lot of success with has been with the mentoring piece. And so this year we decided that we wanted to work with you to support your schools to either enhance or create a mentoring program for a cohort of young men. Now, typically when we think about mentoring programs, we think about a deficit-based model where adults come in and kind of work with youngsters who have deficiencies or are lacking morally, mentally, physically. ESI has taught us, however, that all of our young people, specifically our young men, are future leaders. And they have the qualities, either they possess them or they have the opportunity to learn and then utilize those skill sets. So peer mentoring has been a model that we've seen a lot of success in ESI schools. So what we're looking to do this year is identify a number of schools, 3 schools that will first look to develop or enhance the leadership skills of their young men. And while that's happening, to also think about how they will use those skills and those qualities. So first, leadership development is one component of this initiative that we'll be implementing this year. We're going to ask you to work with your young men, to give them lessons, to help them develop these qualities, to develop these skills. But it's not just about receiving and having these skill sets, but we want to think about what happens once they leave us, right? And what they do with these skills. And so the second part to this initiative will be some kind of peer mentoring activity. We want you to think about how your young men, most of them 11th and 12th graders, reach back and support their 9th, 10th grade peers. If you have a middle school, your middle school youngsters. But since it's only a cohort of 50 to 20 young men, what about the other 11th and 12th graders? This band of brothers, this group that we're forming, this cohort of young men, will be peer support for each other. But we also want them to move to the next level and support their younger peers or their counterparts on their grade level. So we have a service-based learning component to this application as well, where we're saying think globally. Think about your neighborhood. Think about other schools that might be in your same building you're co-located with. How can we support other young men and grow this initiative and this support? And so that's the focus and overview of the work that we would like to see happen this year with this application. Investing in a number of schools, 3 schools specifically, that will, again, increase the leadership development skill sets for a cohort of young men, 15 to 20 young men, how they take that to do a peer mentoring model with hopefully the younger men in their school community, and then to think beyond the walls of that school building and grow that to the community at large. The target areas of leadership development is peer mentoring and it's service-based learning. We'll be looking to schools to see how they incorporate those 3 to create a project and initiative for a cohort of young men. With the expectation and requirement, we'll turn to Brittany.
So the expectations and requirements. In order for all the work to be effective and meaningful, all schools participating in this initiative must adhere to the following guidelines. A school representative must participate in training and planning session in November. Select one point person to liaise with an ESI central team. Visit model schools to speak with administrators, teachers, and students about their best practices regarding youth development, leadership development, and peer mentoring programs. Document the work by writing a promising practice profile. Collect data showing benchmarks and effectiveness of program. Willingness to have your school's work documented by ESI videographer. Attend and participate in a recognition event in January for mentors. So the qualifying schools can be awarded up to $7,000, and this money can be used in any sort of way, which could include materials, food, transportation, events, outings. We really want you to be creative in what you can come up with. The funds will not be placed in Galaxy. We'll be using an invoice and reimbursement method of payment. So schools will also have access to model schools that have leadership development and mentoring programs already implemented, and they can help you by providing best practices that are already effective in their schools. We've also created a list of potential partnerships that you can use to implement your leadership and mentoring programs. This is not required, but we think it might be beneficial when creating and developing your programs. You may also choose to work with an organization aside from what's listed here.
So now we look at the application questions. Keep in mind that ESI has 3 interrelated core areas: academics, youth development, and school culture. Why do you believe leadership development and mentoring will be beneficial to your school community? And how will it promote ESI's fundamental mission of increasing the number of Black and Latino young men who graduate from high school prepared to enter, persist, and succeed in college and careers? So this isn't just an answer of, oh, well, this will be good for our young men. It'll make them better citizens, make them better people. We want to really think deeply about what happens when they leave us each day, each year, and then after they graduate from our institution, what skill sets will they be developing to use in their future activities, both career and in college? The second question talks about how you decide to select your cohort of 15 to 20 young men. Keep in mind, we're talking about a cohort of 15 to 20 young men. How will you identify them to participate in both the leadership development and the mentoring program? You might decide to use 11th graders and 12th graders. Your 12th graders are gone next year. Your 11th graders remain. Do you want to bring them together? Do you want to use 9th graders, 10th graders, 11th, and it's up to you, but we will be looking at what your criteria and how you select your young men. Then you will see in the application a template for both the leadership development course that you set up, as well as your peer mentoring and your learning-based initiative component. We want to know what it's going to look like. We need it to be detailed. We need to be able to go through it and understand how often it happens, where it will happen, who's going to partner with you if you decide to bring in an outside partner. Are you using a curriculum? How will you set up structures that is an ongoing peer support structure? Or is it a one-time thing? Are you going out and visiting a shelter when you decide we want to go to the global component and look at a service-based learning piece? We need to know exactly what you plan to do, how often, with whom, and how many times. Another component of this application is to think about what happens after this year. As you know, ESI had 3 years of funding directly to schools. This year, we don't have direct funding. The ESI team wants to support what you've started. And so we're able to do that this year. But going forward, how will we continue this kind of support that we deem valuable for our young men. Think about how you use your funds, how you commingle the funds you have. So yes, you're getting $7,000 from ESI, but think about what you have in Galaxy and what you have available to support you for this work to be done, not just this year, but going forward. If you do identify additional funds, please note that in your budget narrative. So again, if you're using funds outside of $7,000 that the school will contribute, make that part of your application and make note of that in the budget narrative where you see a template where available. And the final piece is we want to know whether or not this is working. What outcomes do you expect to see in a targeted cohort of young men and the school community as a result of this program? We want to know, was it worth it? Was it worth the investment of $7,000? We want to know whether you should continue it. Should we grow this? But that's going to be for you to tell us based on the data and the information you give us. And that's why it's important, as Brittany mentioned, that we have the data points, whether it's attendance, suspensions, removals, it could be credit accumulation, whatever it is, please be clear to us to understand what you expect to see both from a level we can think about what the students are getting out of it, but what the non-cognitive skill sets that we're also getting with our young men, what are we trying to develop? And so we'll be looking at your application as a way for us to understand what we should fund and what we should not fund. You may get partial funding based on what you lay out. And so we'd like you to be very clear, be as explicit as possible. Use the space that's given to you in your template. If you need more space, just continue in the application or reach out to me or Brittany if you have questions about this. We want to understand what you're doing and not have to try to search for it throughout your application. The final piece is, we've asked that everyone watch this video as an informational piece to understand the application for further understanding. This is not in the application, but to ensure that everyone has watched this, we're going to add a bonus question for those who have followed the instructions to the end. So as we said at the beginning, mentoring is a key component in the lives of our young people, but it's not just our young people, it's us as adults. And the question that we have is, how has mentoring been beneficial to you in your profession or in your life? So again, we have your application. For those who have followed the instructions to watch this informational video, you will get bonus points for you telling us how mentoring has supported and benefited you in your professional or personal life. With that, we want to say thank you very much. Again, we're ESI, Paul Forbes.
And Brittany Dragus.
And we're here to support you. If you need to reach out to us, our email is in the application. If you have questions, please email me and Brittany, and we will get back to you. Applications are due by 5 o'clock on October 28th. A week or so later, you will hear from us of whether you were awarded, whether you're one of 3 schools that was selected to be part of this initiative. Thank you very much.